So in the last video using these aids, I was showing how it doesn't really matter if you have a high carb, low fat diet or a low carb, high fat diet like a keto diet, because the net amount of body fat loss is going to be the same if you equate calories and if you don't really consider changes in protein. What I'm going to talk about today are the times when it can actually be a good thing and the situations where you do want to have a low carb diet for those people that will prefer that, and the times when people might prefer to have a high carb diet and a low fat diet. Let's talk about the advantages of a low carb diet first. When you're in a calorie deficit, your body is burning more energy than you're taking in. And it can feel quite depleting. So we're taking in a bit of carbohydrate throughout the day. This is carbs, remember from last time. We're taking a bit of carbohydrate and we put it in our carb stores. But as we're using more energy than we're burning, the body has a preference when it's deciding where to take that energy from. It usually takes it from carbs first because it's an easier fuel source. So we do get quite low glycogen levels. And when we do have low glycogen levels like this, we feel depleted, we feel tired, we feel hungry. And because our body is conditioned to prefer carbohydrates and glycogen, and it's got a low glycogen tank, we're just going to feel like crap. So if we can condition our body to prefer fat over carbohydrates and get our body into a state of ketosis, where our body actually enjoys and is conditioned to prefer using body fat, then it doesn't matter if this is low, because it can feel quite happy just ticking over on the body fat stores that it's got. So when you go through that 2-week transition during a ketosis period, it's not a very nice transition, but when you come out the other side of the tunnel, your body actually will prefer to use body fat. And therefore, when you're taking in fat during the day, you've got a high amount of fat coming in, but because your body likes burning that fat, or it's conditioned now to burn that fat, it will quite happily burn that fat for energy, and your energy levels will feel quite stable because you've got a decent tank of body fat there, and you're not going to feel depleted because you've got plenty of fat to burn, and your body will quite happily burn that fat away. So those people on low carb diets, you don't even have to be in deep ketosis, but just reducing and selectively reducing carbs will condition your body to prefer body fat as a more primary fuel source. And if you can do that switch into ketosis, it will become a primary fuel source, and it's a great way to just tick along and you feel quite stable and normal, and it'll feel perfectly fine just ticking along in ketosis, and your body's just burning all this fat, and it's got plenty of fat to burn, so you don't feel depleted. But there are times when that can be a bad thing, because carbohydrates can be needed sometimes. For example, if you do a activity that's quite intense, like you do heavy weightlifting, sprinting, or any kind of vigorous exercise, it uses a different metabolic pathway. This goes back into my HTP videos, and I'll put a tag up for it. But when you use these high energy metabolic pathways, they cannot use fat. They have to use glycogen. That is the chemical requirement, the ingredient needed in that chemical reaction to use those high energy pathways, which is glycogen and ATP. And so for you, if you want to do those activities and you have a low carb diet, you have no glycogen, therefore you're not going to have the performance you want to do those activities. So you might as well have a higher carb diet and be in that calorie deficit using carbs, because then when you've got those high activity times, when you're doing those sports, you've got carbohydrates available to burn and you're going to have the performance. So that's one advantage of having a higher carb diet. The other advantage of having a higher carb diet is the fact that you can eat more, because fat is twice as calorie dense as carbohydrates. For example, if I was to take some good old New Zealand butter here, this little stick of butter is 200 or it's 180 calories worth of fat. Okay, that's that there. If I was to take 180 calories worth of carbohydrates, I'll put it in here for you. That is how much carbohydrates you've got, which is about 45. Well, it's a load more food, isn't it? So you're not going to feel very full off of 200 calories or 180 calories worth of fat. But if you ate a decent amount of oats, you're going to feel a lot fuller. So you're actually able to have almost double the amount of food when you're having carbohydrates. And you can fill your stomach with really low, slow digesting carbohydrates and low calorie dense foods like broccoli, like some really good vegetables, and you can fill up your stomach and feel fuller using those carbohydrates compared to eating just some really dense fat that may not fill you up as much. So for those of you that want to have big portions, that want to fill up your stomach and reduce hunger that way by just having the amount of bulk in your diet, then carbohydrates are going to be able to bulk out your food intake more than having a load of dense fat, things like nuts, oils, peanut butter and stuff like that. So there are times when it's good to have a low carb diet. There are times when it's good to have a low fat diet. It's going to depend on your own preferences. It's going to depend on the activities that you do. Depends on your food preferences as well. For people who just want carbs, who enjoy carbs, who like carbs and that kind of thing, then do that. At the end of the day, you need to find something that you can do long-term consistently and that you can establish as a habit that you can do for the rest of your life. Don't start a keto diet if you can't comfortably do it for the rest of your life and comfortably do it for years to come, because otherwise you're setting your body up in a temporary state where it can burn body fat, but you're not setting up the habits required for long-term maintenance, and maintenance is the key. So personally, I recommend to let your body's natural wisdom and natural intuition choose what is the best method to do. And for that, I recommend the Lean for Life program that I've got on my website. The website is free. It's a free program, so you can check it out. You can try it for free. And I really should charge for it, to be honest, because it is worth a lot. But at the moment it's free, so give it a try, and it really explains how to use intuitive eating to naturally choose what's best for you depending on your preferences, your body, your biochemistry, and the activities you do. So I hope you enjoy that. Cheers, guys.